Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
I just watch this spark of life. I mean, it's blown me away. Keith called me and he said he'd be booking my ticket. And I said, well, I could do that by myself because I am a very self-sufficient person. And he said, no, we'll be doing that for you. And I said, but I always do it myself. And we had this little controversy, and he won, I lost. And that's all about keeping an open mind, because in the end, it worked out just great. And what I'm learning in my solo journey is that I don't know everything. I have learned a lot. I have been into a master's degree, perhaps a PhD in life in the last 2 years. And everything that I do is a new experience. So anyhow, Keith picked me up. We chatted on the way over here to the hotel, and it was like we had always known each other, which is the way that it is in this program. So there were several newcomers that stood up, and all I can tell you is to come all the way in, sit all the way down, and stay. And that's the way it works. There's a guy in Texas that always reminds us of that, and the fact of the matter is that is the road to recovery. It's commitment, passion, come in, sit down, and stay. And I think if you're new, you don't know how important it is to have to stay. But on March, in our ODAT book, it says, and it touched me, and it still does today, somewhere down deep inside, I knew I was home. And I have been home with you for the last 38 years. And actually, next Sunday will be my 39th birthday, but I'm not bragging. So I was sitting in the restaurant. I'm going to get on with this. I was sitting in the restaurant this morning having a little scrambled eggs, and there was a guy sitting at the end of the bar, and he was on his cell phone to somebody, and he wasn't in the program. He said, no, I'm at the Marriott in Woodland Hills, and he said, I have never seen so many people at a convention. And he says, these are the weirdest bunch of people I have ever seen. And I thought to myself, you should have seen us before we got here. So, anyhow, aren't we something? I just love the gal who got up here and just giggled through her whole thing. You know, I just want to get up here and giggle through the whole thing, but I know that you probably expect more from me than that. And I told Amy, don't let him take my cake. So, anyhow, could get serious here. So I came into the program in 1981, not knowing anything about alcoholism. I did not know that I was living in progressed active alcoholism. Betty Ann, however, knew. But I didn't know that. And I had two alcoholic sons. They were 15 and a half and 17 and a half years old. I had a full-blown alcoholic husband, and I was Looney Tunes. And I had no idea what was wrong with me. I really did not have any idea what was wrong with me. So the reason for that is that I was born in Chicago, Illinois, to a family that I believe today was alcoholic. I had said that for a lot of years. I always said my dad was alcoholic and my mom was the person who probably would have benefited from the Al-Anon program. But there's always that question mark. We are not supposed to say, you know, whether or not somebody's alcoholic unless we really know that. Now, the fact is that my father quacked like a duck and he walked like a duck, and, you know, and all the consequences that I felt as a young kid, would identify the disease of alcoholism, but I never knew for sure. So here's what I figured out. For the first half of our life, we buy stuff. And for the last half of our life, we throw it away. And I'm in the throwing away stage of my life right now. I mean, keep it simple. So I don't know, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I pulled a box down. It was before my husband passed. And I pulled a box down off a shelf in a closet. And I brought it in my bedroom, and I'm sitting on the floor. And what I realized, it was all my dad's really personal papers. His wedding certificate, his death certificate, love letters to my mom when he was in World War II. And there was a lot of clues in that, because most of them says, I love you, and I promise I will never do it again. Yeah. So, and then in that box, like, that was a little bit of evidence, but it still did not tell me, what my heritage really was. And then I came across the evidence. We like evidence. Those of us in Al-Anon, oh, we like evidence, don't we? So anyhow, there it was. My dad was arrested for drunk driving in Santa Barbara, California at the age of 65. He was put in jail overnight. He paid a hefty fine. His brand new Lincoln Town Car was impounded, and he had to pay a fine to get that out, and he was on 2 years probation. Do you think I knew anything about that? No, because we think that it's a secret. We don't think anybody knows. Everybody knows but us. So that was, it gave me this sense of, yes, it was real. I did come from an alcoholic home. So my mom was the person that would make you scared. I was the person who was scary before I got here, and scary for a little while afterwards. This stuff doesn't go away. So my mom, one day we'd be listening to Don McNeil on the Breakfast Club. She'd kiss me, wish me have a great day, learn a lot, come home, be happy, and everything. And the next morning, I could be wearing a bowl of oatmeal, and she'd whip out the cat o' nine tails and just beat the snot out of me. And the fact is, you never knew what day was what. And that, I don't have to tell you anymore, that's the story of alcoholism. It leaves us not ever knowing that we're secure. It leaves us in a place we're not ever sure if we're loved. Who cares about us? It's not like as little kids we can say to a higher power, I'm powerless over this, and she's making my life unmanageable, and, God help me. I didn't know any of those things. I did not know. And so my tool for recovery and survival, and there's a wonderful book called Survival to Recovery, and the first 17 pages of that really does talk about children who were raised up in alcoholic homes. The whole book is actually very good, but those first 17 pages, I really resonated with that, because it did describe what my childhood was like. The eggshells, the uncertainty, not knowing what was coming next. Are we going to be happy? Oh my God, Christmas is coming, and Christmas was awful. Thanksgiving was awful. April 23rd was awful. I mean, it didn't matter. I mean, it just doesn't matter. When you're living in active alcoholism, you never know. So my dad was a blue-collar worker. He went to work every day. He brought a paycheck home. I lived in the center of Chicago. There were taverns everywhere. My dad drank a lot. He was flamboyant and the life of the party, and everybody loved being around Bill, and, except my mom. She did not like the fact that he was flamboyant and liked to go to the corner pubs. And, they would fight before he went. They would fight, during. And then there'd be this horrible fight afterwards, and there would be that long, horrible period of silence when you didn't know what was going on there. I hate silence. And what I know today is that I have a really hard time letting things be quiet. So what I do is I talk through silence a lot. And that's one of my things. I can blame it on dyslexia, or I can blame it on a lot of other things. But the fact of the matter is, silence makes me uncomfortable, even today. And so does angry people. I cannot be around anybody who's angry. It's just, those are just things that are embedded in my soul that'll never get better, I don't think. And it's okay. It's okay. So my dad was a blue-collar worker. My mother didn't like to be in Chicago. She knew that it was all about the drunken uncles and all the drinking and the taverns, and she just knew if we moved to the suburbs, everything would be fine. So eventually we did, and we took alcoholism with us. And it started all over again. You know, she had promised if we could just go to the suburbs, it's going to be better. We'll get away from Jimmy. You know, we'll get away from this, we'll get away from that. But alcoholism is a family disease, and no matter where you go, you take it with you. And when I got here, I had a hard time understanding about alcoholism because my dad's uncle Jim, or my dad's brother Jim, my uncle, was the kind of drunk that you would identify with. He was wearing somebody else's old dirty trench coat. You know, his pants were peed and pooped, and his fingernails were grown brown and long from nicotine, and he slept in gutters and doorways, and people would throw food at him. And that was the kind of guy he was. Occasionally somebody would call from 26th Street and say to my dad, if you don't come get Jimmy, he's going to die. And they literally would Clorox him and throw his clothes away. And put him in the VA hospital, and he'd get out and they'd help him get a job, and it wouldn't be too long till that all started again. So that's what I thought alcoholism was when I got here. I didn't know alcoholism happened to 15-and-a-half-year-old boys. I didn't know alcoholism happened to my husband. I had no idea, because that was my vision of somebody who was afflicted with this horrible, hideous disease. So we moved to the suburbs, took the drinking with us. My dad became post commander of the VFW, and of course that's all about drinking. And then my mother got more restless, irritable, and discontent, and there was just more space between the houses where when she was screaming, you could hear more. Eventually, she wanted out of there too, so we moved. My dad got an opportunity to move to Ogden, Utah. I was a senior in high school. It was devastating to me, you know, to leave my little network. I was part of the youth center, and we were dancing to Bill Haley and the Comets, and I know most of the people in the room have just fallen asleep because they don't even know who that is. But and you know, we were watching American Bandstand, and you know, there was this network. We had a youth center, we had dancing. It was fun on Friday nights, football games, hang around in groups, and I could stay away from home. And that's really all that mattered. I'd get there when she told me to be there, but if I didn't have to be there, I wasn't there. And I didn't even know until inventory and time in recovery, I didn't know that I was protecting myself from alcoholism. I had no idea about so many things. I can tell you that as early as this morning, I probably had some reflection of what my life was really like. Because what I was told early on is that if God gave you all that knowledge immediately, you would have no choice but to slit your wrists. It would be too much. You couldn't take it. You couldn't handle it. You wouldn't have the right tool on the right day to do that. So anyhow, we ended up in Utah. I've got, you know, a duck tail and saddle shoes and a poodle skirt, and there's Mormons there. Lots of them. And they didn't look like me, they didn't dress like me, and because I was not Mormon, I was Catholic, they didn't want to have anything to do with me, and it was the loneliest time of my life. I mean, it was so lonely, and I'm a senior in high school, and I went to all 3 high schools in Ogden, Utah in 1 year. And finally, I turned 18, graduated, I guess I graduated from high school. I have a diploma. And I don't remember much about that. You know, we have this wonderful ability to just have blackouts. You know, alcoholics are not the only ones that black out. We black out emotionally when pain gets to be too much. So I blacked out apparently, and then I turned 18, and my dad got me a job where he worked, and I don't know how long I was there, a day, a month, not long, I can tell you that. And in he walked. He's got a crew cut, a ducktail, and a job. He was extremely overweight. His teeth were in really bad condition. And, you know, but I did not care. He had all the qualifications that I needed. And as he would walk through our department, he fixed the adding machines is what he did. He'd pull a brush out of his pocket. And he'd go like that. I love cocky alcoholics. I love them. I don't, oh my God, it still makes my heart, I mean, my blood pressure just went up to 101 thinking about it. Oh, my. Anyhow, so he had a job, he had a brush, he had a crew cut, he had a cigarette. Oh my God, that was really important. He had the cigarette. And there's a way that cocky alcoholics can just let that kind of hang out the corner of their mouth and blow smoke rings without even having to hold that thing, just kind of do it. And I fell in love with the illusion, you know, of, I did. And I went into the fantasy, oh my God, if he was mine, I could make him happy. And then somebody told me, enlightened me, and said he was married. And I thought, what difference does that make? I was 18 years old. You know, I had no idea what happy was. You know, I no idea. To the newcomers, oh my God, I'm so excited you're here. Please stay. Anyhow, I had no idea what happiness was, but I thought, you know, and then they said he's married. Oh, but he's only been married 6 months. And I think him and his wife are having problems because sometimes he sleeps in the office. And oh my gosh, I mean, a fixer-upper, right? It was all I needed. That was all I needed, you know. And so they would say, he's sleeping in his office. Oh, he's back at home. I was never happy. That was never good news for me. And finally one day, you know, after all this, and I've got it all built up in my mind, you know, we're married and I've got a little house and, you know, all that stuff. He comes up and he goes, I'm officially separated from my wife and I'd like to ask you out on a date. And I was like, oh my God, you know that moment, don't you? Well, I took him home to meet my dad and they got drunk in the kitchen. And we hopped in that Oldsmobile convertible and away we went on our first date. And when we got home, I mean, all I can think about is if he would kiss me goodnight, it was good. Well, what happened was he never made it. There was a lot of things he didn't make over the next 57 years, but you learn to adapt. And that's what they call about, you know, about the frog in the pot of water. You know, if you put the frog in the water and then you turn the heat up, the frog will stay there till he boils to death, but if you throw him in hot water, he jumps out. Well, I didn't know I was in hot water, and I didn't jump out. But what happened, and it's really important, is that many times in the year and week that we dated, he did not show up for a date. And I would think there was something wrong with me. I was too tall, I was too heavy, my hair was the wrong color, I changed my hair color, I changed my weight. Back then that was really easy. Just skip that piece of chocolate cake that's calling my name, you know, 5 pounds off. And so anyhow, I would get those phone calls. Beverly, I don't know what happened. Now, if you're new or if you're not new, if an alcoholic has told you, drinking alcoholic has told you, I don't know what happened, that is true. I'm giving you an important piece of advice. I don't know what happened is the truth, because they don't. They don't have a clue. But I adjust my whole life to that. Change my hair, change my weight, wonder what I did wrong, wonder if he doesn't like my mother, you know, maybe I don't know, I'll be nicer, I'll be kinder, I'll be cuter, I'll be something, and then he would do it again. And he'd call and he'd say, I don't know what happened. I went to the keg for a bottle of beer, I was going to go home, take a shower, pick you up at 7, and I don't know what happened. Mary and Bill threw us out at 1 o'clock, I'm so sorry. And I heard that over and over and over. And I married him anyhow. So I got pregnant on my honeymoon. Apparently, you're supposed to actually consume the birth control pills. So 9 months and 2 days after we were married, I had a child. I had my first son, and I had no idea how to take care of him. None. I had no idea. I didn't even know how to take care of myself. But I didn't know that until I came here. And I am still learning today how to take care of myself. And it's just this wonderful journey now. It's not scary anymore. So I didn't know how to take care of the baby. I don't know how to take care of myself. My husband, I did not know, was a full-blown alcoholic, and he was never coming home. And when he did show up, he was drunk, and it went on like that well, we had a second child 2 years later. My husband went up the corporate ladder. We always had money in the bank to pay the mortgage, so I had a home. I had my utilities paid, and I had clothing for the kids. I had food, clothing, and shelter, the basic essentials for life. That's all you need. And I had that. I always wanted more. I never thought it was enough. I wished we would live across the street, or it's too bad we couldn't have that car, or something. I was never happy. I was restless, irritable, and discontent. I was a liar. I became the one that my children became afraid of. I became the one who had to monitor my behavior so I wouldn't hurt them. Even though as a child I promised myself that if I ever got married and if I ever had children, I would never do to my children what my mom did to me, ever. And I did, because I didn't have you and I didn't know any better. And I tried. Now, I'm not telling you that they didn't learn nursery rhymes. I read to them. I washed their clothes. They got 3 meals a day, but I was emotionally gone. I was always wondering where he was, when he was going to come home. So I had an obsession. My obsession is not alcohol. My obsession is the alcoholic. And it disturbs me. It distracts me. It keeps me from loving. It shuts my heart off. To my children, it shuts my heart off because I learn how not to trust. And my prayer even today, this morning, is to please trust, to be able to open my heart and to feel the love that's in this room today, because every single one of you in here wants me to do my best. You want the best for me. You didn't come in here and think to yourself, oh my God, she's going to be awful. You didn't think that. You wanted to hear a recovery story, and you all wished me the best. And my prayer this morning was for me to be able to open my heart and feel that. And slowly, slowly, it's happening for me. And then I cry a lot, which is wonderful, because I was told early on that tears wash the windows of the soul. And my soul is almost, I can almost see out the windshield now. So anyhow, time went on. My husband went up the corporate ladder. We landed in Texas in June of 1978 with 2 full-blown alcoholic children and an alcoholic husband. And I didn't know anything about alcoholism. I was still trying to fix things. If I was different, if I changed, if this and that, and what are the kids doing, and why are you late, and I was just nuts. And what I realized today, and I don't have to describe the insanity that we go through, because you all know what it's like to live in active alcoholism. And I was in that pit for 41 years of my life in active progressed alcoholism. And what I know today is that this God that I have come to understand and come to love, trust, came and got me. He came and got me. And I had been in Tyler, Texas. My husband and I were at a convention, and an alcoholic woman stood up at the podium that, Saturday morning, and she was telling her story. And she said, on Saturday night, I was on Harry Hines. I was overweight, full of wine sores. I was a prostitute. I'd do anything for a drink or a drug. And she said, the next morning, I woke up in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous not knowing how I got there. I did not know how I got there. And she said, all I know is that God blew the whistle and said, you, out of the pool. And what I know today, is that the God who loved me way before I even knew that he did, said, oh my God, that poor thing. He said, you, out of the pool, and take those 2 kids and your husband with you. Come with me. And the way that God directed me out of that pool of alcoholism was through a coworker, and her name was Margaret. And Margaret came to work after she'd been gone for about 3 days, and I said, Margaret, where you been? And she said, oh my God, my son almost died of alcoholism over the weekend. And I said, what does that look like? I can't tell you now, but we'll have lunch and I'll tell you about it. So I went in there, I don't know what's going on. And so I said to Margaret, so what happened? And she said, well, he overdosed on drugs and alcohol, had alcohol poisoning. He was in ICU. They had him hooked up to everything they could hook him up to, and we really didn't know whether he was going to live. And she says, and he did. He pulled through, and they put him in an ambulance, and they sent him up to Denton, Texas, to a place called Westgate. And he's going to be in treatment for alcoholism for the next 28 days. And I said to Margaret, what does alcoholism look like? And Margaret said to me, well, Tim did this, and he did that, and then there was this. And for a moment, just a moment, that denial, those scales pulled away from my eyes, and I could see the reality of what was going on in my house. There was a day when Betty Ann's daughter threw my son in the front door, dying of alcohol poisoning, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I can't call an ambulance. What would they think of me? What kind of a mother would I be if I called? So I called my sister, who loved every alcoholic in Louisville, and I said, what do? She says, throw him in the bathtub and just keep throwing cold water on him. And she says, every time you throw cold water on him, he'll go, ugh. Well, I could have killed him. But I got him breathing. By God, you put your mind to something and you'll get it done. That was one thing. I saw all the bags of marijuana that my husband was riding around with in the back of his car. I saw the pills in the washing machine, all the kids. I grew 10 pots of what I thought were hybrid marigolds. In my bedroom. For real. They gave me a little plastic Ziploc bag and said, Mom, will you help us with a science project? And, they had pretty much excluded me from their life, and I thought, wow, this is great. So I got 10 flower pots and some Miracle-Gro potting soil, and I put those seeds in there to grow and put a little saran wrap on them and put them in my bedroom window because it's got southern exposure. So they grew. And they grew, and they grew and grew, and I took care of them. I came home at lunch. I watered them. They got big leaves like this. And I thought, these are the most amazing marigolds I've ever seen. And then one day the marigolds were gone. And I thought, oh my God, what is the science teacher going to think? And I was going to go to Louisville High School at 7:10 on a Friday night to explain to the science teacher that we really did grow the project. So that's how nutty I was. And I just heard the voice of God say, the school is closed. So I went and did the next right thing. I put some clothes away. I saw the seeds, the plants thumbtacked on the inside of my youngest son's wall. And then I went into white hot rage, which is something that I was really good at. And I want to tell you that I have not gone into a white hot rage since April 4th of 2000. And that, I was scary. So, when you go into one of those rages, you don't have the ability to stop. And today I have a stop button, and that is amazing because of you. I have a button, and I can, take a breath, run out of the house. I don't have to throw anything. I don't have to hurt anybody. I have tools to not go there again. So anyhow, I thought about those seeds. I thought about a lot of other things, while I was sitting there talking to Margaret. You thought I forgot where I was. Anyhow, I said, could I have the phone number of that place? And she gave it to me. And that was the end of January. We went for an interview. They didn't know who was alcoholic. That really hurt my feelings because I was, as Babs Black used to say, the keeper of the fly. I mean, I was the one who wanted to drive and keep order and everything, so I didn't drink. And I want to tell you something really funny. Last Sunday, my 31-year-old granddaughter and she came over and we spent the whole day together, and it was pretty cool because I'll tell you what really happened in a little bit. But I had a glass of wine with her. It was my first glass of wine in 38 and a half years. Anyhow, it was like I saved the bottle. She said, "Nanny, do you think you're going to be okay?" And I said, "As long as we don't go anywhere." So anyhow, we go to Westgate, and I take the kids in there, and and they said, "We don't know who needs to be here. Go home and live life and figure it out and to bring the alcoholic back." And that was somewhere around the end of January. 1st of February, Scott steals everything that wasn't nailed down in my house, in your house, and all over Highland Village. And by the time he got to school on Monday, they had taken his little buddy and put him in the Denton County Jail. And my son knew that he was next. And so he called me and he goes, "Mom, I think I'll go to treatment for alcoholism." So if you're sitting here and you don't have a good motive to be here, it doesn't matter. Just sit. Just sit, because it doesn't matter. So Scott went to treatment for alcoholism. And because of that, I was told to go to Al-Anon. And I says, "I can't, I work." And she said, "So do we." So I thought I could go to 28 meetings, 28 days, then I'm out of here. I don't need to join your silly little club. And when that was on February 9th of 1981, and on March 8th, when my son got out of treatment, I was all in. I knew, like I said in the beginning, that somewhere down deep inside I knew I was home. And I think without even knowing it, I did come all the way in, and I sat all the way down, and I stayed. And I have been a passionate member of my own recovery for all these years, and for that, I have so much gratitude, I can't even tell you. So the young one did not stay sober. He was in and out, in and out. My husband took a desire chip at the treatment center on February 23rd. He had 37 years of recovery on February 23rd, and on February 24th, they told us that he needed to go into hospice. But we celebrated his birthday in the hospital. It was really pretty wonderful. It was a wonderful occasion. So, and then on March 30th, we were getting ready to go to a meeting at the Alpha Club in Dallas. It was a wonderful speaker meeting on Sunday mornings, and my oldest son walked in the house at 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning, and I could see that he was drunk. And I said, "Oh my God, he's drunk." And Scott said, "He's worse than me." So then I went to the meeting and I said to somebody there, "What do we do now?" And he says, "Beverly, your home is a privilege." I don't know that. I did not know that. And I said, "So?" And he goes, "He doesn't get to live there. If he wants to drink and drug, he doesn't get to live there. And you can ask him to leave." And I said, "God, he's only 17 and a half years old." And he says, "With the choices he's making, he's old enough that he can go and live wherever he needs to live to do whatever he needs to do." And so, armed with somebody else's courage and faith and their program, I went into my house after that meeting and I said to our oldest son, "If you want to get sober, you are welcome to join us tomorrow night when we go over to the Louisville group. And if not, you have until Tuesday to move out of this house." And he goes, "Tuesday? That's only 2 days." And I said, "No, actually, it's only 1.5. Because you told me I was willing to do anything." And I said, "So that's your choice. You have to be gone." They said, "Don't give him a lot of time because he'll figure out a way to connive and manipulate and soften you up and make you look like you're wrong and he's right." I mean, you know how that goes. They're good at it. And so I told him that, and he says, "Oh, okay, I'll go to one meeting," and I got on a soapbox. And anyhow, that doesn't do any good. God said to shut up, and I did. And we took him to that meeting, and Millie Humphreys, who is 91 years old and still the most active member of Alcoholics Anonymous I've ever seen, was sitting on the sofa, and she says, "Who's that?" And I said, "That's our oldest son." And she says, "He's half dead." And I can't see that. She said, "You go to Al-Anon, we'll take care of him." And they did. And I went to get some coffee, and then I peeked in the AA room just to make sure. And I watched Stephen get a desire chip, and on March 30th of this year, he will have 39 years of sobriety. Our youngest son came in and out. He went to another treatment center, and then he was out, and then at 17 and a half, I put him out because my home was a privilege, and I believed that, and I had program, and I put him out, and I quit enabling. I learned how to detach with love. I learned how to separate the disease of alcoholism from the boy that I loved, and there are two separate things. I learned that, and it was an amazing gift that God gave me. I could see my son Scott as a child of God, a boy that I loved, that I gave birth to, and I could see the hideous disease of alcoholism. So I learned how to hate the disease and love the child. I mean, you gave me such amazing tools in here. So anyhow, Scott ended up getting married. He went to Florida. He had a job because he knew I wasn't sending any more money. I mean, no money. No money. Now, that'll make the little wife mad, but that was not my responsibility. You taught me that it is not my responsibility about what you think of me. So anyhow, they went off to Florida. After they got married, got a job. They had a baby, and when the baby was 6 months old, my son was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS. And it was 1988, at a time when AIDS did not have a cure. It was primitive at best. And they came home at a couple of weeks before I found out that my son was going to die of AIDS. I had taken my dad in from California. He was dying of multiple myeloma, and the vet told me within the next couple of weeks I was going to have to wrap my brain around the idea that I was going to have to put my golden retriever down. And I called my sponsor that day and I said, "You people promised me that God would never give me more than I can handle." And I said, "My dad's dying, my son's dying, and I'm going to have to put my dog to sleep." And she said, "God has not given you more than you can handle today. Today." And I'm going to tell you what, she said, "You write in a journal every day. At the top of that page, I want you to see the evidence of God." And I am here to tell you that as of this morning, I saw the evidence of God. I see the evidence of God in Frankie Ann and all the people that worked on the committee and all my friends that are here and the people that I don't know yet. I see the evidence of God because it's right here. And on that day, I couldn't see the evidence of God. And she says, "I want you to write at the top of that page the evidence of God every single day. From now on, God will give you just what you need when you need it." And when you're in that kind of pain and fear, how can you believe that? But the bottom line is, what choice do you have? God is either everything or he is nothing. What is your choice to be? And in that state of mind of this horrific losses that I was facing, what was my choice to be? What was it? You know, it says right here that the spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. We have to learn to trust in this power greater than ourselves. I mean, what other choice do you have? And it doesn't have to be a Catholic God or a Hindu God or anything. It's a power. That's all they're asking in our steps and in our life, is that we begin to believe in the power. There is power in this room today, power that I can't even comprehend. And she asked me that day to believe in that power and to find the evidence of God. So the dog went down, and then I said goodbye to my dad, but before he left, he gave me a blessing, which is what everybody really wants, is for our parent in an alcoholic home to finally say, you know, not that I loved you best, but you were good. You know, I loved you. And I got that blessing from my dad before he passed away. And then the kids came home from Florida. And my son actually lived almost 5 years. It was horrific. And he passed away in 1993. And after that, you know, we had my daughter-in-law and my granddaughter. We kept them close to our heart and in our home. And for the next, 13 years, we took our granddaughter to the Crested Butte Conference with us. And, you know, she was in our home. I fixed Sunday dinner on Tuesday because my husband and I had a little business that we were doing. And after my son died, I went into a real horrific fantasy life. And in How Al-Anon Works, and I think it's maybe around 37, buy the book, check it out, I'm not really sure. It says in there, struggling with reality, and it talks about how when life becomes so painful, the only thing that we can do is to create a fantasy where we can create a suitable outcome, a happy ending. And that's what I did. I created a happy ending for 4.5 years. I just left my life and I went into a fantasy and I was not present. That's a whole blank spot in my life. As my husband's health was diminishing, my prayer to God was, please, dear God, if he goes before I do, please, I want to stay present in my life after he goes. And I am here to tell you that I did. I am present in my life. For the most part, you know, for the most part, I am present in my life. It doesn't mean that I haven't grieved, I haven't been lonely, that I haven't been sad, but I have gone on with life. And that's, you know, that's the gift that we get here, is that we just keep going forward, you know. So anyhow, back to Scott, and that time went on. And about 7.5 years ago, when my husband and I were getting ready to retire, we told my daughter-in-law and my granddaughter that we would no longer be able to help them out financially, and we never saw them again. And it shattered my heart. Sarah was my heartbeat, and just shattered me. And anyhow, time went on. You know, pain heals. Every day, almost every day, for 7.5 years, I prayed for Sarah. I just said, God, you know, bless her. God bless her. And on Halloween, I was sending out Halloween cards to all my great nieces and nephews, something that I do, and it's too much fun. I get brand new $2 bills from the bank, and I put a little $2 bank in the, or bill in the card, and I don't know, I think I send them out 4 times a year: Easter, Halloween, Christmas, I don't know. Anyhow, I was getting my Halloween cards ready, and I've got one of those new fandangled phones that don't have a home button, everything slides. And I was in the bees because, you know, my other granddaughters are brunettes, and so I'm in the bees, and somehow or other I went to close the contacts, and I accidentally dialed Sarah's phone number. And I'm like, no. And about 30 minutes later, I get a phone call from her, and she goes, what do you want? And I said, I'm so sorry. I said, it was an accident dial. I said, I didn't mean to bother you. And an hour and a half later, we got off the phone. That was on a Monday. On Sunday, she showed up at my front door, and after a lengthy hug, she said to me, Nanny, you're as beautiful as ever. And so I've seen her a number of times now, and I just think, oh my God, a butt dial. A butt dial. God uses every trick in the book. Every trick in the book. So anyhow, I'm going to just tell you a little bit about what happened prior to my... I love golden retrievers. A lot of you who know me know that I can't have enough of them. And I had 3 of them at one time, and 2 of them were service dogs, and I'm very dyslexic, and I had an opportunity to work in the Flower Mound Public Library with dyslexic children with my dogs. It was wonderful. I did it for 7 years, and these little children read to my dogs, and it was just great, because you see, I was 60 before somebody diagnosed my dyslexia. Before that, everybody said I was dumb. And the fact of the matter is that I have a genius IQ and 5% comprehension, and I've memorized my whole life. And on the day that this lady in Alcoholics Anonymous took the time to test me, she was the child psychologist in Beaumont, she says, "Oh my God, I had no idea." And I said, "Neither did I." But when the paperwork came in the mail, I just sobbed. And I held the envelope in my hand, and I said, nobody will ever call me dumb again. But I'll tell you what, I was talking to Keith Thursday night, and I accidentally, with this new fandangled phone, cut him off. I mean, who would do that to Keith? But I did. And my house sitter, I have somebody that comes to my house when I go away, and she's sitting in the living room watching TV, and she heard me say, "Well, Beverly, that was dumb." And she says to me, "What are you saying to yourself?" And I'm like, whoa, whoa. So sometimes we still do. We still are not our best friend, you know, and I don't know. I'm learning. I'm a work in progress. So anyhow, from November of 2017, I put one golden retriever down. The day after Thanksgiving, my husband went in the hospital. He was in 5 hospitals and 6 ambulances, and he passed away on March 10th. In January of last year, I put another one of my golden retrievers to sleep. And this time I called in hospice because, you see, I'm not afraid of death. I want to be there. I want to feel the spirit lift out of the body. I want to thank you for all that you've done for me while you were alive. And I held my dog, and the hospice, the veterinary hospice, came to my house, and I said goodbye to my beautiful Jake. And then I went down and I adopted a puppy. And I want you to know that was the only dumb thing I've done since George. I am not dating. I have not gotten married. I have not spent the entire fortune, nothing, but I adopted a puppy who is part kangaroo, cheetah, greyhound, and Doberman. And he's the love of my life. So, you know, all I want to tell you is, this is amazing. After my husband died, I had nothing left. I have never felt so void. Spiritually, mentally, and physically, I was done. I could not have done anything more, any one more day. But do you know what I did know? Get yourself deep in the program. Get yourself back around your people. And it's not like I missed meetings while my husband was sick or in the hospital. As sick as he was, he would say, "It's Thursday." And I think he knew that if I went to a meeting, you know, I'd come back, at least I'd be better. I don't know. But I never missed. I always went to at least one meeting a week during that time. And after he passed, I started to go to 2 open AA meetings a week. I go to the open step speaker meeting on Monday night, the open speaker meeting on Friday night. I go to a noon meeting of Al-Anon on Wednesday. I go to my home group meeting on Thursday and Saturday, and anything else that comes up, because I'm building myself back up. After all that, I have never felt that way in my life. This is the place where we have the power to put broken lives back together again. And I am an example of what love can do. And thank you so much.